the waveform keeps moving. That is not unusual. What is unusual is where it was recorded. Earth disappears behind the moon. Radio contact drops away. The spacecraft continues recording. For a few minutes, nobody on Earth can directly hear what the crew hears or compare it against anything outside the vehicle. The recording remains. The verification does not... At first, that sounds like a technical detail. Then the audio starts. Transcript fragments appear without much explanation. A few lines. A few reactions. Then the audio again. If this were only a random recording artifact, the location would not seem important. But the sound appears during the part of the mission where outside confirmation becomes harder. The spacecraft, for a short time, becomes its own closed world. That changes the meaning of the recording. The sound is no longer interesting because of how it feels. It becomes interesting because, during that blackout, the recording is the only witness. About 2 hours later, the geometry repeats. The Apollo mission recordings sit inside that repeated lunar shadow. The spacecraft follows its path, moves behind the moon again, and the line back to Earth drops away once more. The audio traces are placed side by side. One recording ends. Another begins much later. The timelines are different. The surrounding conversation is different. Yet there is a moment where the waveform seems familiar enough to slow the comparison down. The image stays there longer than expected. A second trace, a similar shape. A diagram appears on screen. Two communication paths inside the spacecraft cross each other, separate again, and reconnect through different equipment.
Tower, we are black.
The Apollo mission
Far side.
recordings can be tested against the
second pass
spacecraft's
follows
own
years
radio
later.
systems.
Traces of a shared
For the
path.
first time, the sound starts to look less mysterious. Apollo carried multiple communication channels inside a command module only a few yards across. Signals move through equipment packed close to the crew. Under the right conditions, onboard radio interference could create tones that were never intended to be part of the recording. A clean comparison plays beside the mission audio. The shapes are not identical, but they are close enough to be reassuring.
As the service
The
module
explanation
rotates,
has a physical
sunlight
source.
exposes the dense
It lives
cluster of
inside the
antennas
spacecraft.
and closely packed signal
No
hardware.
hidden object is required. No unknown signal has to enter from outside. Then one trace stays visible. The expected source ends. The explanation appears complete, yet a thin section of waveform continues beyond the point where attention should move elsewhere. It is not large. It is not dramatic. The radio system explanation still fits most of what is being observed. In the Apollo mission recordings, the spacecraft is both observer and evidence. The diagram shows a possible source. The recording shows the result. For a moment, those two pieces seem enough. The sound can be traced back through equipment inside the spacecraft. The case appears close to finished. Then the recording is played again, alongside the mission timeline. A communication loss window overlaps the event. The internal systems continue operating. The recording continues collecting data. Yet the path that could independently check what is happening is missing. Radio signals can cross the distance between Earth and the Moon in about 1.25 seconds. That delay is small. It barely matters. Line of sight matters more. When the Moon moves between Earth and the spacecraft, direct radio contact disappears completely. The explanation remains visible. The verification path does not. A split screen holds both conditions at once. On one side, the onboard signal path continues through the spacecraft. On the other, Earth contact is blocked. The recording exists. The external check does not. The earlier explanation still explains the sound. What it does not explain is how the sound could have been independently confirmed during the moment it was being recorded. The image remains unchanged for a few seconds longer. The spacecraft keeps recording. The gap stays empty. The Apollo mission recordings are evidence from a place Earth could not fully watch in real time. The recording survives. The spacecraft completes its pass. The archive remains. Years later, the audio can still be played back, paused, compared, and studied. What cannot be recovered is the moment itself. The recording continues through that blind zone. The archive exists. The certainty does not. The final image barely moves. The moon remains between Earth and the spacecraft. The path continues. The recording remains available long after the pass is over. What began as a question about an unusual sound ends somewhere quieter. Humans often imagine observation as direct, seeing, hearing, confirming. But sometimes, the only thing that returns is a recording from inside a system that had already been cut off from outside verification. The silence was never empty.